Stefania arrives as the 17th episode of the 5th season of Everybody Loves Raymond. This is directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. It's a fine episode, there are some good moments, but I don't like Stefania as a character, so obviously with the episode heavily focusing on her, it's not a favourite, but it's okay. It starts off with Marie really excited. She's over at Ray and Debra's, and Stefania is arriving, but Robert doesn't know. It's a surprise for Robert. And he comes over, and then the door goes, and Marie tells Robert to answer the door, and he's quite suspicious of her behaviour, so he just says no. And then Debra tells him it's okay, and he answers the door, and it's Ray. So Robert's still a bit confused. But then Stefania arrives, and Robert is initially really quite excited about this, and we get Stefania on her own for a couple of minutes, and then her father arrives, which I hadn't expected. I couldn't remember from the last time I saw this episode, and needless to say, the atmosphere shifts to the point of Robert just pushing Stefania away. They then play golf, and Stefania keeps poking him, and Robert makes it very clear he does not like this. And she stops doing it, and then she does it again. And that is so infuriating. There is nothing worse. Well, there are things that are worse, but it's so annoying when you tell somebody, please don't do this. I really don't like it. And they think it's funny to keep doing it. So if I didn't dislike her before, I certainly would have disliked her then. They're all out at dinner, including Stefania's father, and his father declares that he is staying in America. I don't think it's that easy, but nevertheless, that's what he's doing. And he rather creepily tells Ray and Robert and the rest of the family that he's going to buy Nemo's, even if Nemo doesn't want to sell. A little bit sinister. And then over back at Ray and Debra's house, Robert is having mixed feelings, but he's not making his feelings known too much, and Ray decides to tell him that maybe Robert and Stefania are just going at it too quickly. Maybe their relationship is too much too soon. And he uses cream of wheat and the burner underneath it to explain that the relationship is too hot, and Michelle, wrong TV show, Marie starts to panic that the cream of wheat is going to get burnt, so it's representing their relationship. If they just go full force too quickly, their relationship will get burnt and it'll be all ruined. And then Ray turns down the burner to describe his and Debra's relationship and explain that they can sit on that for a long time, which actually I quite liked. I thought that worked really well. And then Frank says, I'm going to tell you about my marriage now, but I'll need a garbage disposal. So it was a really nice scene, and we then find out from Robert that actually there's just nothing there. He kind of is annoyed by Stefania, and he doesn't want to be in a relationship with her. And Marie turns to him and says, Robbie, are you very sure you're not homosexual? The words coming out of her mouth, quite funny, but it was Robert's response. He just balked at her, which was very, very entertaining. And Robert then tries to talk with Stefania. We are over at Robert's apartment, and she's not really paying attention. Robert explains she has the attention span of a moth, which I rather liked. And she's just flitting around, not really listening to him. Kind of rude, actually. And then she puts on his policeman's shirt, which she shouldn't be doing. And Robert is attracted to her. But he eventually manages to find the courage to break up with her and just tell her it's not working. And she's annoyed by this. And she doesn't really have a right to be annoyed because, well, maybe she does, maybe she doesn't, because Marie was the one who invited her over there. It wasn't Robert. So she has a right to be annoyed at Marie for misleading her, making her think Robert was still interested in her. She doesn't really have a right to be annoyed at Robert until Robert pointed out that he thought she was annoying. He kind of accidentally said it. At that point, yes, she had a right to be annoyed. And she storms out wearing Robert's shirt, and he yells after her, morally I did the right thing, which I think he has to keep reminding himself of, because it wasn't fair to string her along. And just as he says that, all we see is his police shirt being thrown at him from, obviously, Stefania's off camera, and Robert's face says it all, because obviously she wouldn't have anything on underneath it, or maybe not a lot underneath it. And Robert was great in that moment. And we end with Robert going to Nemo's to de-stress, to have some pizza, And it's not Nemo behind the counter, it's Stefania's father. And it's a pretty creepy moment. And he can't tell Stefania's father that he broke up with her, so he tells him rather, that he is gay instead. And that's how we end the episode. So, some good moments. I think Marie, her behaviour in this was rather funny. Maybe not always acceptable, but certainly quite funny. Frank was brilliant. Frank seemed to be in a really good mood throughout the episode. And Robert was brilliant and admirable as well. I don't know if they wrote Stefania to be annoying, but I feel like I found that from day one. I've never cared for her as a character, so I think that was maybe intentional. I don't know. But either way, the episode itself is not bad at all. It's certainly not a personal favourite. But that being said, Stefania arrives, has some good moments, and ultimately is a pretty decent episode of Everybody Loves Raymond.